Welcome to this peaceful moment. Here, you will discover stories inspired by the quiet beauty of Japan. Each tale is like a soft breeze through a bamboo grove, carrying you away from the worries of the day. Imagine the scent of blooming cherry blossoms and the gentle flow of a nearby clear stream. Let these words and sounds cradle your mind in calm and serenity. Tonight, permit yourself to drift into a restful sleep. Let us begin this journey together. The Crane and the Gratitude. Under the soft glow of the full moon, in a quiet village nestled among rolling hills and whispering bamboo, there lived a kind-hearted man named Haruto. He was a simple weaver, known by everyone for his gentle smile and humble life. One winter evening, as the snow fell gently from the sky like delicate feathers, Haruto walked along a narrow path through the forest. The world was silent, except for the crunch of snow beneath his feet and the distant sound of a bamboo water fountain, a shishi-odoshi, tapping rhythmically. Suddenly, he heard a faint cry. Turning his head, Haruto saw a white crane tangled in a hunter's trap. Its long wings struggled weakly, and its eyes were filled with fear. Without hesitation, Haruto approached. "Don't be afraid," he whispered. Carefully, he freed the crane from the trap, brushing the snow from its feathers. The crane stood still for a moment, looking deeply into Haruto's eyes, as if trying to speak. Then, with a graceful flap of its wings, it soared into the moonlit sky and disappeared into the clouds. Haruto returned to his small cottage, warmed by the fire's glow. Days passed, and the memory of the crane stayed gently in his heart. One evening, as the snow fell once again, there was a knock at Haruto's door. When he opened it, he found a young woman standing in the cold. She wore a simple kimono, her hair as black as midnight, her skin as pale as snow. "Good evening, sir," she said with a soft voice. "I have lost my way in the snow. May I stay here for the night?" Haruto, kind, nodded. "Of course. Please come in and warm yourself." Days turned into weeks, and the young woman, named Yuki, stayed with Haruto. She was graceful and gentle, and in time, they fell in love. Eventually, they married, and Haruto's quiet life became filled with warmth and joy. One day, Yuki spoke, "Haruto, I wish to help you. I can weave beautiful cloth that no one has ever seen. But I have one request. Promise me that you will never watch me while I weave." Haruto agreed, curious but respectful. In the days that followed, Yuki worked behind closed doors. The cloth she created was like shimmering moonlight, with patterns of cranes and bamboo swaying gently. The villagers were amazed, and soon Haruto was able to sell the cloth at the market, bringing prosperity to their humble home. Yet, as time passed, curiosity grew within Haruto. What is her secret? He wondered. One evening, unable to resist, he quietly opened the door just a crack. What he saw made him freeze. There, instead of Yuki, stood a magnificent white crane. It pulled its feathers and wove them carefully into the cloth, each movement graceful and sorrowful. Realizing he had broken his promise, Haruto closed the door in silence, his heart heavy with guilt. The next morning, Yuki appeared before him, her eyes filled with sadness. "My dear Haruto," she whispered, "I am the crane you once saved. I came to repay your kindness. But now that my secret is known, I must leave." Tears fell from Haruto's eyes. "Please, don't go." Yuki smiled gently. "Be at peace, my love. The gift of gratitude remains in your heart." With that, she stepped outside into the snow. The wind swirled gently as she transformed back into the white crane. Spreading her wings wide, she soared once more into the moonlit sky, disappearing among the stars. Haruto stood silently, gazing up at the empty sky, his heart filled with both sorrow and deep gratitude. From that night on, whenever he heard the distant call of a crane, he whispered, "Thank you." And so, under the endless sky, with the snow falling softly, the quiet village returned to peace, cradled by the whispers of the bamboo and the gentle tapping of the shishi-odoshi. Moonlight over Arashiyama. The soft glow of the moon bathed Arashiyama in a gentle silver light. The tall bamboo stalks swayed quietly, their slender leaves rustling like whispers in the night. A cool breeze carried the faint scent of plum blossoms, while the distant sound of a shishi-odoshi tapped rhythmically, echoing through the peaceful hills. In this tranquil corner of Kyoto, a young woman named Aiko strolled along the narrow stone path. She often visited this place at night, drawn by its quiet beauty. The world felt slower here, as though time itself took long, deep breaths beneath the moon. As Aiko walked, the soft crunch of gravel beneath her sandals was the only sound accompanying her. The river flowed gently nearby, its surface reflecting the silvery glow of the moon and the stars scattered across the sky like tiny lanterns. Tonight felt different. The air held a certain magic, as if the forest itself was alive, watching, listening. Aiko paused by a small wooden bridge arching over the stream. She leaned on the railing, watching koi fish glide silently beneath her. Suddenly, a faint melody drifted through the air, a soft, haunting tune played on a bamboo flute. Aiko turned her head, searching for the source. Through the thin mist, she saw an old man sitting beneath a blossoming cherry tree. His white kimono glowed faintly in the moonlight, and his silver hair shimmered like strands of silk. Intrigued, Aiko approached slowly. The music grew clearer, each note weaving into the quiet night like a gentle lullaby. When she reached him, the old man opened his eyes and smiled kindly. "Good evening, young one," he said softly. "The moon is beautiful tonight, isn't it?" "Yes," Aiko replied, bowing politely. "It feels like the world is dreaming." The old man nodded. "Arashiyama holds many dreams. Some are old, some are new. But all are peaceful under the moonlight." He paused, then gestured to the space beside him. Would you sit and listen with me for a while? Aiko sat quietly on the grass. The flute's melody resumed, blending perfectly with the rustle of bamboo and the flowing river. She closed her eyes, letting the music wrap around her like a warm blanket. Minutes passed like drifting clouds. In the stillness, Aiko felt her worries melting away. The gentle hum of insects, the cool air on her skin, and the rhythm of the flute filled her senses. It was as if the world had slowed down just for her. After some time, the old man lowered his flute and spoke again. Many centuries ago, a wandering monk came here, searching for peace. He played his flute beneath this very tree, and found serenity in the moonlight. His spirit still lingers, offering comfort to those who seek it. Aiko opened her eyes slowly. "Are you that monk?" The old man smiled gently. "Perhaps. Or perhaps I am only a dream, like the mist that comes and goes. But tonight, you have found the peace you sought, haven't you?" Aiko nodded, her heart light. "Yes. Thank you." The old man stood slowly, his figure almost blending into the mist. "Then carry this peace with you, wherever you go." As he walked away, his figure faded like morning fog, until only the soft sound of the flute remained, floating in the moonlit air. Aiko sat for a moment longer, feeling calm and safe. The moon continued its silent watch over Arashiyama, its light gently kissing the bamboo leaves and the quiet stream below. When she finally rose and walked home, the world seemed softer, kinder. And in her dreams that night, she heard the flute's gentle melody once more, guiding her into peaceful slumber. The whispering bamboo path. Hidden deep within the mountains of Kyoto lies a path that few travelers know, a narrow trail winding through a dense bamboo forest. The villagers call it the Whispering Bamboo Path. They say if you walk it alone on a moonlit night, you might hear more than just the wind in the leaves. One such evening, a woman named Yuki wandered toward the entrance of the path. She had heard the old stories as a child, tales her grandmother whispered by the hearth. Back then, she thought them nothing more than beautiful lies. But tonight, something in her heart longed for those whispers once more. The bamboo stalks stretched high above, swaying gently in the breeze. As she stepped into the forest, the world behind her seemed to disappear. Only the soft rustle of leaves and the distant sound of a flowing stream remained. It was quiet, but not empty, more like the forest was watching, waiting. As Yuki walked deeper into the grove, a strange peace settled over her. The troubles of her daily life, work, loneliness, the pressure to always be strong began to fade like mist. With each step, she felt lighter, as though the forest was lifting the burdens from her shoulders. Suddenly, she heard a sound. Not the wind. Not the stream. It was a whisper, delicate and distant, like a voice carried across time. She paused, listening. The voice did not speak words, but it stirred something deep inside her, a memory, or perhaps a dream. Drawn by the whisper, Yuki followed the path as it curved gently to the left. The moonlight filtered through the tall stalks, painting silver lines across the forest floor. Ahead, a faint glow appeared. She moved toward it with calm curiosity, her footsteps silent and unhurried. In a small clearing, she found the source of the light, a stone lantern, ancient and covered in moss. Though it had no flame, it glowed softly from within. Yuki knelt beside it, placing her hand on the cold surface. At once, the forest felt completely still. Even the wind stopped. Then, in that silence, she heard it again whisper, clearer this time. "Thank you," it said. "You listened." Tears welled in Yuki's eyes, though she did not know why. The voice was gentle, kind. It reminded her of her grandmother's lullabies. Of warm nights long ago, when the world felt safe and full of wonder. The lantern's glow began to fade, but Yuki didn't feel sad. Instead, a quiet joy filled her heart. She stood, bowed respectfully, and turned to walk back. The path seemed brighter now. The bamboo whispered once more, but now it sounded like a song farewell, or perhaps a blessing. As she emerged from the grove, the sky began to lighten with the first signs of dawn. Yuki looked back once, and though the forest appeared unchanged, she knew it had spoken to her. And she would never forget the night she walked the whispering bamboo path. A tale of the koi pond. In the heart of a quiet temple garden, hidden beyond a row of old stone lanterns and flowering plum trees, there lay a koi pond. It was not large, nor grand, but it shimmered like glass in the morning sun. The koi within were known to the monks as ancient guardians of peace, gliding gracefully through the water like living brushstrokes. One early summer evening, a boy named Haru wandered into the garden. His family had come to the temple seeking rest and healing, but Haru, curious and restless, had slipped away from his room to explore. Drawn by the soft trickling of water and the faint scent of wet stone, he found himself at the edge of the pond. The koi swam close as if expecting him. Their colors glowed gold, white, crimson, and deep sapphire, each one different, yet somehow in harmony with the others. Haru sat on the smooth rocks, watching them circle slowly. The water was so clear that it seemed almost unreal, like a portal to another world. As twilight deepened, something strange happened. A breeze stirred the surface of the pond, and a soft voice spoke, not loud, not frightening, but calm and old. "You listen well, little one," it said. Haru looked around, startled, but saw no one. The voice seemed to come from the water itself. "You carry worry," it continued. "A weight too heavy for a boy your age." Haru blinked. He didn't speak, but the voice continued anyway. "Once, long ago, this pond held a single koi who wished to become a dragon," it said. Every day, he swam against the current, up the stream, dreaming of the sky. Others laughed at him. "You are just a fish," they said. But he did not stop. One stormy night, he leapt higher than ever before and vanished. Haru's eyes widened. Did he become a dragon? He asked aloud. A ripple passed across the pond. "No one saw what happened," the voice replied. "But when the storm cleared, a silver scale was found on the highest rock." Since then, the koi here swim not only for beauty, but for hope. The koi circled slower now, their movements like a dance. Haru felt his chest loosen, and his thoughts grew quieter. He didn't know why the story touched him so deeply, but it did. Maybe it was the way the koi moved, or the voice's warmth, or just the garden's stillness. As night fell, the voice faded. The pond returned to silence, broken only by the sound of wind in the plum trees. The koi lingered a little longer, then drifted away into the shadows beneath the lily pads. Haru stood slowly. He felt lighter somehow, as if the story had taken something heavy from his shoulders. He turned back toward the temple, where his parents waited. But before he left, he whispered to the pond, "Thank you." And though no voice replied, the koi gave one final splash, like a quiet promise. The Silent Fox Shrine. Deep within the forest, where even the birds spoke only in whispers, there stood a forgotten shrine. Its gates were covered in moss. Its lanterns had not been lit for generations. And yet, there was a stillness there that felt sacred. Locals called it the Silent Fox Shrine. They said a fox spirit once protected this land. Kind, clever, and quiet, she would guide lost travelers, mend broken hearts, and vanish without a trace. But over time, people stopped coming. The paths grew wild, offerings faded, and the fox, they said, fell into a deep slumber. One misty evening, a woman named Aki wandered through the forest. She was tired not from walking, but from the weight she carried in her heart. Her job in the city had drained her, and the noise of everyday life had grown too loud to bear. She had heard stories of a peaceful place in the woods, a place untouched by time. And now, her steps, almost unknowingly, brought her to its threshold. There it was, shrine. It looked small and quiet, half swallowed by the trees. But something about it called to her. A presence, perhaps, or a memory she never knew she had. Aki stepped through the old torii gate. Her footsteps softened as moss welcomed her soles. She bowed gently at the stone altar, though she didn't know why. And as she stood there in silence, the wind suddenly shifted. A single white fox mask, worn and delicate, hung from a low branch nearby. Curious, she reached out but stopped just before touching it. "Why have you come?" came a soft voice. Aki turned, startled. But no one was there. "I don't know," she answered truthfully. The air thickened, and the scent of incense seemed to drift from nowhere. "You seek quiet," the voice said. "But what you truly seek is stillness." "I'm tired," Aki whispered. A long pause followed. Then came the voice again, softer this time. "Then rest." The fox mask tilted in the wind, and Aki felt her breath slow. She sat on the cool ground before the altar, closed her eyes, and let the silence wrap around her like a blanket. Minutes passed, or perhaps hours. She didn't know. But when she opened her eyes again, the mist had lifted, and the world felt gentler somehow. The mask was gone. The voice was gone. But Aki's heart felt lighter, and her thoughts once tangled quieted. She stood, bowed once more, and turned to leave. Behind her, unseen, a small white fox watched from the shadows, its eyes calm, its body still, like a spirit keeping an ancient promise. And the forest remained silent, just as it always had. Gentle rain in Kyoto. In a quiet corner of Kyoto, away from the crowds and neon lights, there was a narrow alley lined with wooden houses, stone lanterns, and the soft scent of old cedar. Here, time moved slowly. It was a rainy afternoon in early spring. The kind of rain that didn't rush or roar, but whispered. Thin, steady drops fell like silk threads from the gray sky, brushing the tiled rooftops and rippling through the canals. Emmy sat beneath the covered porch of her grandmother's old Machiya house, a cup of warm green tea resting in her hands. The steam rose gently, curling like smoke from a forgotten memory. This was her first time back in Kyoto in years. She had grown up visiting this house every summer. She remembered the soft tatami under her bare feet, the smell of pickled plum, and the creaking floorboards that sang beneath her small footsteps. Now, as an adult, the house felt smaller, but the rain sounded just the same. It tapped against the bamboo gutters with a soft rhythm. It pooled in the moss between the stepping stones. It soaked the cherry blossoms just beginning to bloom along the garden's edge. Emmy closed her eyes. She didn't need music. She didn't need words. The rain told stories on its own. Stories of morning markets and red paper umbrellas. Of fox shrines hidden behind veils of mist. Of her grandmother's gentle laugh and the way she used to hum while making miso soup. And for a moment, the world felt whole again. A cat padded into the garden, its fur wet but its steps graceful. It paused by the stone lantern and looked up at Emmy with calm, amber eyes. Then, without a sound, it disappeared beneath the camellia bush. The rain kept falling. Not cold, not heavy. Just enough to blur the edges of things. To soften the world. And as she sat there, Emmy felt something she hadn't in a long time: stillness. A kind of peace that didn't demand attention, but simply was. She took a sip of tea. It tasted of earth and quiet. Of Kyoto. Of memories that hadn't faded, only waited. In the distance, a temple bell rang low, deep, and round like the rain itself. Emmy smiled softly. There was no need to rush back. The city would wait. The noise, the screens, the deadlines, they could wait. For now, there was only the rain. And it was enough. The spirit of the cherry blossom. Long ago, in a quiet village nestled between forested hills and winding rivers, there stood a cherry tree unlike any other. It grew on the grounds of a small Shinto shrine, its blossoms so pale they seemed to glow against the deep green of the mountains. People called it Sakura no Seirei, the spirit of the cherry blossom. Each spring, the villagers would gather under its boughs for hanami, spreading tatami mats, sipping warm sake, and laughing softly as the petals danced down like snow. But they never plucked a single blossom. They believed the tree housed a gentle spirit, one who protected the village, healed sorrowful hearts, and whispered wishes into the wind. The shrine maiden, named Hannah, had served there since she was a child. Quiet and kind, she was said to understand the language of wind and water. She spent her days sweeping the stone steps, tending to the offerings, and singing soft prayers under the cherry tree's branches. One year, the spring came late. The air remained cold, and the buds stayed closed well past the usual blooming. People worried that the spirit had gone silent. Whispers of illness, bad harvests, and growing misfortune echoed through the village. Hannah remained calm. Every morning, she knelt beneath the bare tree and spoke gently. Not with words meant for others to hear, but in the old language, the quiet one, of spirit and breath. She sang lullabies learned from her grandmother, placed warm rice and water at the roots, and waited. Then one morning, as the sun broke through the mist, the first blossom appeared. Not just a bloom, but a soft, radiant light. From within the tree, a presence awakened. A fox with fur like drifting petals stepped from the shadows of the shrine. Its eyes were the pale gold of early dawn, and around its neck hung a single sakura bloom, fresh and unfallen. Hannah bowed deeply, heart steady. "You waited," the fox said, its voice like wind over water. "Even when others forgot. I believed," she replied, "as the river believes in the mountain's snow." The spirit nodded. Then it walked beneath the branches, and with each step, the cherry tree bloomed slowly, gracefully, until every branch trembled with soft pink light. Villagers awoke to find the tree in full glory. Tears filled their eyes as they gathered, awestruck, beneath the blossoms. They brought offerings of rice, tea, and poems written on washi paper. They did not speak loudly. They simply listened to the rustle of petals, the hum of bees, and the quiet joy that returned to the air. But the fox spirit was seen only by Hannah. Before it vanished once more into the tree's roots, it looked back and said, "The blossom is brief, but its truth is eternal." Beauty, like kindness, does not seek to last. It simply is. Hannah carried those words with her for the rest of her life. Years passed, but she remained the shrine's guardian. The cherry tree bloomed every spring, without fail. And though Hannah grew old, the villagers said she never seemed to wither like a petal caught in still air. When she finally passed, quietly, beneath the very tree she had loved all her life, a gentle wind rose and scattered the blossoms into the sky. Some said they saw a fox walking through the petals. Others claimed they heard a soft voice on the wind, singing an old lullaby. But all agreed on one thing. The spirit of the cherry blossom had never left. It was in the tree, the breeze, the hearts of those who remembered. And every spring, when the petals began to fall again, the village whispered her name Hannah with quiet reverence. Sleeping under the red torii. There is a shrine deep in the forest, far from roads and forgotten by maps. You will not find it unless you are not looking. And even then, only if the forest allows. At its entrance stands a great red torii gate. It rises from moss-covered stones, weathered by centuries of rain and wind, its color faded to a warm, earthy rust. Vines have begun to curl around its legs, and small wildflowers bloom in the cracks. But the torii still stands. Locals say that time flows differently beyond it. One autumn evening, a traveler named Ren wandered into the woods. He was not lost, exactly only tired. Tired of the noise, the rush, the endless lights of the city that never truly slept. He followed no trail. His feet moved as if remembering a path older than he knew. The trees grew tall around him, their golden leaves whispering stories to the wind. Then, through the shifting branches, he saw at the torii gate, silent and still. Something in his chest softened. He passed beneath it without thinking. Beyond the gate, the air was cooler. The forest floor was soft with fallen leaves. A stone path stretched ahead, broken in places but still leading somewhere quiet. At the end stood the shrine, small, wooden, and ancient. Its roof was curved gently like the wings of a resting crane. Wind chimes hung from the eaves, though no breeze stirred them. Ren sat on the worn steps. He didn't pray. He didn't ask. He simply sat, his eyes closed without effort. He listened to the hush of trees, to the distant call of an owl, to the breath of the earth itself. And sleep came gently. He dreamed of water flowing under a red moon. Of foxes with white fur and golden eyes. Of a woman in a pale kimono standing by the gate, smiling without speaking. When he woke, the moon was high. The torii shone in its pale light, and the forest seemed to hold its breath. Ren stood and bowed, though he did not know why. Then he turned and walked back the way he came. But something had changed. The world outside was not louder, but he was quieter. The weight in his chest had lightened, like a leaf released from its branch. From that day on, Ren returned to the forest often. He never spoke of what he saw, nor did he ever try to find the shrine again. But sometimes, in the quietest nights, he would dream of that place. And in those dreams, he slept once more beneath the red torii, not to escape the world, but to remember that there is still silence beneath all things. The serene sound of shishi-odoshi. In a forgotten mountain hamlet called Shin-sui, time itself seemed to flow at a different pace. Narrow stone paths wound through moss-covered gardens, where cherry blossoms and bamboo grew in harmonious quiet. In each courtyard, there stood a humble bamboo water fountain, the shishi-odoshi. When a drop fell into its hollow frame, it would tip, let the water escape, and clatter softly against a stone. A metronome of calm, repeating in gentle, unpredictable rhythm. Kenji, a young painter from the city, arrived in Shinsui one golden afternoon. He carried a portfolio of frantic brush strokes and anxious colors, images of crowds, neon lights, and urgent deadlines. His spirit felt fragmented, like a canvas under too many layers. His aunt, the village caretaker, welcomed him at the gate. "Stay as long as you like, Kenji," she said softly. "The village is still and silent. Let it fill your heart." As he set foot on the main path, the faint clack-clack of shishi-odoshi greeted him. He paused. No hurry. He inhaled the sweet, earthy scent of moss and cedar. His aunt led him to the old guest house, where they shared green tea and roasted chestnuts under the afternoon sun. That evening, Kenji stepped into the courtyard. The sky was clear, the air cool. Moonlight brushed the bamboo leaves. The shishi-odoshi, perched at the corner, began its quiet dance. One drop clack. Two drops clack. But never in perfect time, always slight, suspended within the beat. Kenji set his sketchbook on his lap. He traced the bamboo, the water, and the hollow wooden tube. Each stroke calmed his racing thoughts. Each clack sent his breath deeper, slower. By midnight, his family's faces and city streets were all but forgotten. He had painted a single page a bamboo grove, the fountain steady, and one open window looking inward to his quiet mind. Over the next days, Kenji rose early to catch the first shimmer of sunrise. Dew collected in the fountain's dip, triggering the first clack that day. He began to record the sound, its pauses, its rhythm. He walked the village, offering small paintings for sale: a plum tree in blossom, a cat asleep by straw sandals, the mossy edge of a stone well. But only a few villagers paid, and none hurried. Each purchase was a nod of understanding. One afternoon, he found the caretaker sitting beside the fountain. "You listen, now?" she asked. "I try," he replied. "It tells you to breathe longer," she said, looking into his eyes. "It says be here." That night, the village hosted a small poetry gathering beneath lantern light. Shrines lined the path, and the shishi-odoshi created a backdrop of soft cadence. A poet read, "In each small pause, we hear eternity." Kenji felt the verses sink into his bones. Later, under a lantern's hush, he heard the fountain not as noise, but as invitation. Invitation to present, to stay, to trust that silence can speak louder than color can paint. Weeks passed. Kenji's sketchbook thickened with pages of still places and still people, pictures of morning fog drifting across rice fields, of an old monk. Folding papers, of the fountain's bamboo finally dry at dusk. He no longer chased failure or acclaim. He chased the quiet. On his final evening, he painted the courtyard itself. The stone path, the faint river of bamboo stalks, and the fountain's wooden arm poised above the stone with a single drop poised to fall. Dawn came too soon. He packed his bag, leaving behind paintings for his aunt and the tiny tea house. She hugged him. "You found your brush again?" she asked. He nodded. "I found my breath," he said. He walked through the courtyard one last time. The autumn breeze stirred the leaves. The shishi-odoshi spoke clack a single gentle echo. He stood still until the echo faded. Then he stepped through the gate and into the world beyond. Epilogue. Years later, Kenji's paintings of Shin Sui and its bamboo fountain would be featured in galleries. Viewers were drawn not only by the beauty but by the peace radiating from each stroke. Many said they felt as if they could hear the soft clack of a water fountain echoing in the night. In that echo, they found stillness. And someplace, in a small village wrapped in moss and morning mist, the fountain continued its quiet dance, mindful, unhurried, eternal. The Hidden Garden of Nara. In the quiet heart of Nara, beyond the temples and the deer-filled parks, there lies a secret place. It is not marked on any tourist guide. No signs point the way. Even many locals have forgotten it exists. They call it the Hidden Garden of Nara. It sits behind a weathered wooden gate, half covered in ivy, at the end of a narrow path near a small, silent shrine. Most people walk past without ever noticing it. But if you happen to pause, if you truly listen, you might hear the soft rustle of leaves, the distant trickle of water, and the sound of time itself slowing down. One summer, a young woman named Mari came to Nara. She was a researcher from the city, worn out by long days and sleepless nights. She had come to study ancient texts, but her heart was heavy. Deadlines, pressure, and the noise of the modern world had left her spirit thin and quiet. She longed for something she could not name. An old librarian, seeing her tired eyes, whispered to her about a place few remembered. He drew her a simple map. Curious and half lost, Mari followed it through stone alleys and under wooden arches until she found the gate. She hesitated, then gently pushed it open. The garden welcomed her with a breath of cool air. It was quiet, but not empty. The space felt alive. Tall bamboo swayed overhead, filtering sunlight into dancing patterns. Moss covered the stones in soft green layers. A small stream moved between carefully placed rocks, its water clear and calm. In the center, a round pond reflected the sky like a mirror. Mari stepped inside, and for the first time in months, her shoulders relaxed. She sat on a smooth stone near the water. A pair of koi fish moved slowly through the pond, their orange and white scales bright against the shadowed water. A cicada called from somewhere high in the trees. The garden was filled with sound, but it was the kind that made silence deeper. For hours, Mari sat without speaking. She let the garden speak to her instead. She remembered her childhood, when she would sit under plum trees while her grandmother told stories. She remembered the sound of rain on old wooden roofs and the smell of tea. The memories came softly, like the garden's breath, and something in her heart softened. Each day that followed, Mari returned. She brought her notebook, but not to work. She sketched the moss, the stones, the gentle curve of the stream. She wrote poems she never meant to publish. The words came slowly, like the garden's rhythm. She met an old man in the garden. He wore a faded blue jacket and moved with care, sweeping fallen leaves and tending to the plants. He never introduced himself, but he smiled when their eyes met. One afternoon, Mari asked him, quietly, why the garden felt so peaceful. The man paused, resting his hands on his broom. He looked at the pond for a long moment. "Because nothing here rushes," he said. "Everything has time to be exactly what it is." Mari nodded. That night, she dreamed of lanterns floating on water, of deer walking silently beneath bamboo trees, of a stone path that led not forward but inward. By the end of the week, she no longer counted hours. Her notebook was filled with sketches and words, none of which followed her research plan. But she felt more herself than she had in years. On her final morning, the sun rose through a light mist. The garden was pale with dew. Mari walked one last time along the path, touching the stones gently with her fingers. The koi stirred in the pond. The cicadas had not yet begun their song. She turned to the old man. "Thank you," she said. He nodded. "The garden is always here," he said. "When you need it, it will find you again." Years passed. Mary's career changed. She left her academic work behind and began to write stories, quiet stories about quiet places. Readers from around the world said her words helped them sleep, helped them breathe, helped them feel still. Some said they dreamed of gardens, though they had never been to Japan. In a quiet room in a distant city, Mari kept a painting above her desk. It showed a round pond, two koi, and the edge of a mossy stone path. Sometimes, when she looked at it, she could still hear the garden's voice. Soft water. Leaves in the wind. A place where the world paused, just for a while. And in Nara, the garden remains. It does not advertise itself. It waits, silent and gentle, for those who listen. Fireflies in the summer night. In a quiet village surrounded by soft hills and silent trees, summer came like a warm whisper. The days were long, the sky pale with heat, and the nights were filled with the soft rhythm of crickets and the scent of wet grass. On the edge of the village lived a girl named Hannah. She was visiting her grandparents during the summer holidays. The town had no traffic lights, no tall buildings, only dirt paths and old wooden houses. To Hannah, who came from the city, it felt like stepping into another world. One evening, her grandfather said, "Tonight, you will see something special. You must be patient." As the sun dipped behind the hills, Hannah sat on the porch, her legs swinging gently. The sky turned from orange to deep blue. The wind slowed. The trees stood still. Then it happened. A single light blinked in the dark field. Then another. And another. Tiny golden lights floated above the grass, flickering like little stars. They moved slowly, rising and falling with grace. "Fireflies," her grandfather said softly. Hannah watched with wide eyes. She had seen pictures before, but never real ones. The fireflies danced across the field, silent and glowing. Some came close, their light gentle and warm. She held her breath. One landed on her hand for a brief moment, then lifted away into the dark. That night, she could not sleep. The image of the fireflies stayed in her mind. She wanted to know why they came, how they glowed, and where they went when the light faded. The next day, she asked her grandmother, "Why do fireflies shine?" Her grandmother smiled and said, "Some say they carry wishes. Others say they are spirits, returning for a little while in summer." Hannah liked that idea. Spirits of summer. From then on, she waited each night for them. At sunset, she walked to the field, sat on the grass, and waited. The fireflies always came. Some nights, they were many. Some nights, only a few. But they always returned. She began to notice more. The way the frogs croaked in the distance. The soft sound of the creek nearby. The cool touch of the earth beneath her fingers. The world was alive, but not loud. One evening, she met an old man in the field. He stood still, his hands behind his back, eyes on the lights. "You like them too?" Hannah asked. He nodded. "They remind me to slow down." He told her a story. When he was young, he used to chase fireflies with his brother. They laughed, ran through the fields, trying to catch the tiny lights in glass jars. But one night, his brother said, "Let them fly. We can watch without holding." Since then, he has never tried to catch them again. "They are not for keeping," he said. "Just for seeing." Hannah thought about that. She never wanted to catch them, only to be with them. As summer days passed, she brought a notebook to the field. She drew what she saw. The shape of the trees. The pattern of the stars. The way the fireflies moved. She wrote poems too. Simple words about light and quiet and dreams. One night, she saw something new. The fireflies formed a slow circle, like a quiet dance. She closed her eyes and imagined music. Not from an instrument, but from the earth itself. When she opened her eyes, the lights had spread out again, free and gentle. Her last night in the village came too soon. She walked to the field alone. The moon was full, the grass damp with dew. The fireflies were waiting. She whispered, "Thank you." As she sat down, one landed on her knee. She smiled. "I will remember you." When it lifted off, it glowed brighter than the rest. Back in the city, the nights were loud. Cars moved fast. Lights never dimmed. But in her heart, Hannah kept the quiet of that summer. Sometimes, before bed, she opened her notebook. She looked at her drawings. Read her poems. Closed her eyes. And then, in the stillness of memory, the fireflies would return. Floating. Glowing. Whispering of a summer that never truly ended. The gentle monk's journey. Long ago, in a quiet mountain temple surrounded by cedar trees and mist, there lived a gentle monk named Ryozan. He wore plain robes, walked slowly, and spoke with a voice as soft as falling leaves. He lived simply, tending the garden, ringing the morning bell, and offering warm tea to travelers who passed through. One morning, as the mist lingered and the wind was still, Ryozan heard a crow cry once, sharply, from the distant valley. He stood on the temple porch and listened. It was a sound he had heard many times before, but that day, it stirred something inside him. Later, as he swept the garden path, the head monk approached him. "You seem thoughtful today, Ryozan." Ryozan bowed. "I feel the wind calling me. I don't know why." The head monk nodded. "Then go. Take your bowl, your sandals, and your heart. Walk in silence. Return when the path is complete." So Ryozan began his journey, carrying only a cloth bag, a wooden staff, and a small bell that chimed gently with each step. He walked through forests, where sunlight filtered like golden threads through the branches. He crossed rice fields, listening to the sound of frogs, the buzz of dragonflies. At night, he slept beneath trees, using his folded robe as a pillow, the stars his blanket. In each village he passed, Ryozan offered small kindnesses. He helped carry water, mended a broken fence, or simply listened to someone speak. He did not preach nor speak of enlightenment. He only bowed, smiled, and moved on. One evening, he arrived at a small riverside village. The air smelled of wood smoke and steamed rice. He sat near the bridge and listened to the river. A young boy approached. "Are you a monk?" he asked. Ryozan nodded. "Only one who walks and listens." The boy frowned. "My sister is sick. She doesn't smile anymore." Without a word, Ryozan stood and followed the boy through narrow paths and up a small hill to a quiet home. Inside, a girl lay on a mat, pale and silent. Ryozan knelt beside her. He said nothing. He only placed the small bell beside her and let it ring once. The girl's eyes moved slightly. She looked at him. He smiled gently, then took out a wooden flute from his bag, something he had carved long ago, for no reason but joy. He played a soft melody, like wind through pine trees. When he finished, the girl blinked. Then, slowly, she whispered, "That was beautiful." Her mother wept with quiet relief. Ryozan bowed and left, walking back to the river. The stars had begun to appear, one by one. In the morning, he continued on. He walked through misty valleys, mountain passes, and quiet lakes. He met an old man who had forgotten how to laugh, a young widow who had lost all hope, and a carpenter whose hands trembled with fear. To each, Ryozan gave the same gift: silence, presence, and peace. Years passed. The gentle monk's beard grew long, and his steps slower. But still he walked. One day, Ryozan returned to the temple on the mountain. The same crow called from the valley. The head monk, older now, was sweeping the porch. Ryozan bowed deeply. "I walked a long road," he said. The head monk smiled. "And what did you find?" Ryozan looked toward the garden. The wind stirred the bamboo gently. "I found that even in sorrow, there is still music. Even in silence, there is kindness." and in every heart, something wishes to bloom." The head monk nodded. "Then your journey was not in vain." That evening, Ryozan rang the temple bell. Its deep sound rolled through the valley, across rivers, fields, and villages. And in each place he had passed, someone paused. A girl in a hilltop home smiled and remembered the flute. A widow lit a lantern and breathed more freely. An old man laughed softly for no reason. The sound of the bell lingered in the air, long, low, and gentle. Just like the monk who had once walked quietly through the world, leaving behind nothing but light footsteps and warm echoes.